Hi, so I want to be the first to welcome everyone to Global Connections Train Smart, 7 Principles of Movement. Before I get into introductions of myself and my assistant here, I want to give a shout out to our program coordinator of Global Connections, Caitlin Hennessy. She was supposed to be doing the introduction, and I'm kind of shellfish with my microphone, so I was more important, so that's why I'm doing it. But she's done a great job for us, and she's really helped out getting this stuff going, and we're really excited to start working with Global Connections more to do more of these webinars and other kind of amazing stuff that I would like to offer you with regard to increasing your well-being. So before we kind of get into the meat of everything that we're going today, first I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Ramon Sodano. I am the fitness coordinator here at Washington State University's University Recreation Center. That's just a fancy way of saying that I am the manager of the personal trainers and the weight room department here. A little bit about me, my background is been in fitness. I've been a strength conditioning coach and a personal trainer for the last 10 years. I received my bachelor's in kinesiology from Washington State University, and I also received my master's in sport management. I would say if we were going to talk about specialties, my specialty comes from movement and basic fundamental movement and primitive movement patterns of the human body and how to establish those so people move correctly when they get in the long term of whether it's sport specific or just typical kind of training. I kind of think of fundamental movement as the clay that molds exercises. It's not just the exercise, it's literally what molds them, so it's very important to me. So I'll let Natalie introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Natalie Reitz. I am a student personal trainer here at the Rec Center. I've been training for about 2 years, and I'm still an undergrad in kinesiology. Almost done now.
What would you say your specialty is?
My specialty would probably be either strength and CrossFit.
Natalie's one of our star personal trainers here. She actually gets requested quite a bit, and she's not taking clients anymore right now, which makes things very difficult for me. But that's okay. She's been doing a great job. So today, we got this cool little area set up. We're going to go into kind of what I call the 7 principles of movement. Pretty much all of them are movements. One of them necessarily isn't, but it is very important and pertinent to everything else that you would do. So how we wanted to do this is we're going to talk about the 7 fundamental movements that make up most exercises that you would see in a typical exercise routine. So if you go to the gym, if you go to CrossFit, you go to your box, you do whatever, most exercises are made up of 7 dominant fundamental patterns. And we really want to kind of talk about the proper mechanics for those and how to identify if you're deficient with the mechanics, because a lot of bad things can happen if you are trying to do certain movements while in an improper fashion. That kind of leads me to a term that has been coined in the field called building strength on top of dysfunction. So if we are training ourselves consistently in an improper mechanical pattern, all we are doing is we're cementing that pattern in an improper way, which builds strength on a dysfunction. So you may be getting stronger, but the pattern that you are increasing is incorrect, and it most likely will lead to injury and or asymmetries in the long run, which is just not what we want to happen. While talking about how establishing the basics of fundamental movement patterns and how to reestablish them is kind of beyond this scope, we're going to give you kind of a quick check sheet, a quick list to look at when you're doing these basic movements that are involved in most exercises. And if for some reason you are unable to fix them at just kind of noticing what's going on in the mirror and trying to set the core or stand straight up and down or maintain the back, there may be something that's a little bit further down the rabbit hole that you need to figure out, and you would want to see a physical therapist or a functionally movement certified personal trainer who could help you with that. But we don't want to get into all that today. We're not going to get into developing mobility and stability. We're just going to talk about the patterns, what they are, why it's important to build them into a program symmetrically, and then just the basic form of what they look like and kind of the common faults that we see with them. So the basic patterns that we have is going to be, there's going to be 7. You don't need to write them down right now. We'll write them here when we go one at a time. That'll be simpler, so you don't have to kind of rush and keep up with me, because I'll go through this quickly. I talk really fast. I'm sorry. I'll try my best to slow it down. So the 7 movements that we're going to talk about, the first one I said, it's not really a movement. We call it core engagement and or rotary stability. This is involved because in every single one of the movements that we're going to talk about, it is the foundation of that movement, of all of them. We need to make sure that we're set from the core first off. All right. If you want to think about it, simply think of the core as the foundation of the house. So if you have a weak foundation, you start building real strong, real heavy duty framing around that house, all you're asking for is collapse. Okay. And we want to make sure that we have a strong foundation for that house. I'm a prime example of building a very weak foundation on top of a very strong house for a long time. And I'm dealing with injuries now into my 30s. So that's awesome. But you know what? Don't do what I did and listen to me now. So core engagement is number one. Number two is going to be vertical pressing. In most exercise routines, people are pushing stuff over their head for some reason. They're working their shoulders, they're working their Olympic lifts, they're doing some type of vertical pressing. The next movement would be vertical pulling, such as pull-ups, lat pull, all kinds of different variations of where you're pulling yourself up, or you're pulling a bar to your head or to your chest. So we have vertical pushing and vertical pulling. Simple. Now we move on, we have horizontal pressing and horizontal pushing. Or horizontal pressing and horizontal pulling. Horizontal pressing would be your dumbbell chest press, your bench presses, your push-ups, anything like that. Your horizontal pulling is going to be your rows that are coming in, doing TRX rows, rows with the dumbbell when you're bent over, all kinds of things like that. The final two, we have knee dominant exercises. When you think of knee dominant, really think of like your squats, single leg squats, lunges, anything where you're getting a lot of knee flexion and extension. And the last one we have is hip dominant exercises. So we talk about the hip hinge, doing lots of things where the fulcrum point is in the hips, like your deadlifts, good mornings, things like that nature. Kettlebell deadlifts, we'll go into those here in a little bit. So we have these 6 movements that are all encompassing with the core engagement. It's really important that you build your exercise routine, or if you have a trainer who is training you or you're training with a friend, but that you have a routine that is weakly symmetrical with these movements. And what I mean by that is you have as much vertical pushing as you do vertical pulling, that you have as much horizontal pushing as you do horizontal pulling, and as much knee dominant exercises as you do hip dominant. What's going to happen if you don't is you're going to develop asymmetries in the body. So I may be really, really strong in the front and really, really weak in the posterior. That asymmetry can cause a lot of injuries. I could have a weak rounded back where I'm kind of hunching over. I'm in kyphosis up at the thoracic spine. I'm starting to get frozen shoulder syndrome coming up. And all of a sudden when I have to do something where I extend, I can tear a trap or a rhomboid or some crazy back muscle, okay? So you want to make sure that we're balancing everything out. That goes for your knee dominant exercises, since it's dominant, going to be quad dominant work that's happening there, to your posterior dominant, which is going to be your hip dominant exercises, which will be your glutes, hamstrings, and things of that nature. What happens a lot is that we see in the gym is individuals love to look in the mirror and love to look at themselves and just like to work what they see. And it really develops a lot of asymmetries and deficiencies in the body. And while it's cool to look great in the front, remember that there's a backside to you too. Remember that there's a left and right, and there's very seldom times that we're actually on 2 feet at one time. We're, linear animals. We're walking. We're always kind of bipedal, we're going from left to right. Anything in sports, when you're cutting, changing direction, you're dominantly on one foot. So it's also very important to implement that unilateral work as well. So that's a brief introduction of kind of the movements, and what I want to do now is kind of show you what each one of the movements looks like. I'm not going to, Natalie is. Like I said, I'm an old man and I'm hurt now, so she's much stronger than I am. And we're going to have her go through some of the movements, what it shouldn't look like and what it should look like, essentially. And then just maybe some things that you feel, okay? If at any point you have any questions, feel free to bring them into us. I would love to answer them. I think you said we have about a 20-second delay. So feel free to still ask them, and if it comes on and it's still pertinent to talk about, then we'll hit it. And if not, we'll kind of get them at the end, and we have a spot for questions at the end too, correct? And we do for that as well. So if you want to write your questions down or whatever, we can work through that. So the first one I want to talk about is basic core engagement, okay? And there's just going to be a real simple check that I'm going to have Natalie do right now to kind of show what it looks like when the core is not engaged. And we'll get back to this section, if you want to come over here, when we're going to go to vertical pressing, face them. I'm going to have you show what extending or having the ribs come up in core engagement is with coming above the head with the PVC pipe, okay? So she's going to bring this PVC pipe above her head, and she's going to show what improper core engagement looks like. So she brings it up, and we see that her ribs are coming up, okay? What we actually want to happen is have the ribs stay stacked down, and we want this lumbar spine to stay nice and straight, turn to the side. So she's engaging her core by kind of exhaling and bringing her belly button to her spine. Bring the bar down real quick. So what she's doing, face front, is she's not just inhaling, so she's not coming in like this. She is literally contracting her abs and pulling her belly button to her spine to make a real nice neutral line. We're going to do more core engagement stuff here in a second, but it's very important to understand that the core's main function is to keep the lumbar spine, she's going to get moved around a lot, It's to keep the lumbar spine nice and straight, okay? A lot of people do a bunch of, you're going to turn around again, a bunch of rotation exercises, flexion exercises, and extension exercises to get their abs. What's happening is you're really working the superficial level of your ab musculature, and it may look like you have a rockin' six-pack, but your core is actually not that strong. So the lumbar spine, in total degrees of movement from lateral flexion to extension to rotation, only calls for a total degrees of 15 degrees of movement. What the core is there for is to make sure that that spine stays straight in movement. So what it's really used for is anti-extension, anti-rotation. If I came up and I shoved Natalie and she was ready, she would want to engage at the core to maintain the safety of the back. Your core is reflexive in nature, your body's reflexive in nature, and it wants to react to stimuli around it correctly. So if we're starting to train the abs in a bunch of ways where we're doing a bunch of flexion, rotation, and extension, we could be developing some bad movements. So other things that we can look at with the core is I want you to turn to the side so the camera can see you. Put your arms up. So I want you to see, just watch her stomach as she engages her core. So go relaxed and then engage the core. Now, are you breathing in or are you breathing out?
Exhaling.
So it's really important to exhale as we're trying to do this core engagement. And we're just going to hammer this away for a second because if I'm just, you're taller than me enough, you can put your hands down. It's okay. Don't make me look too short. So we don't want you just to think of like sucking air in to bring that stomach in. That's not what we're doing at all. It is literally just a quick exhale and engages those abs, and it literally flattens this pelvic floor out. We want this pelvic not to scoop under or get in any subjective position where it's going to make that back flex, because if you think about it, hold this for a second, your spinal columns are stacked on top of each other like so. In between each one of them is a disc, okay? And if you want to think of the disc as like some gelatinous kind of structure that's held in by some membrane, okay? And if we're putting the lumbar spine in a position where now we're kind of getting some extension and the vertebrae are separating, this disc is bulging out. And it's not really meant to do that at the lumbar spine. Now, if all of a sudden we put loaded weight on it, like in a back squat and really extended, now that disc just wants to bulge out even farther, and that's how we can get herniated and slip discs. So it's really important in pretty much every action that you do that you have some sort of core engagement. There's multiple ways to do this. There's things called bracing the core, which is much what like Olympic lifters and power lifters do. That's a little different. They're not going to be bringing their abs in so much as they are pushing them out, but it's a way to keep the back straight. For our purposes, though, we really want to think about exhaling and drawing that belly button into the spine. And we're going to show one more exercise with it. I'm going to have you just do a plank to show what we want it to look like for if you were going to train a core exercise. So let's have you come down into your plank position. Just do a prone plank. So right now she's in good position. We got a nice solid back. She's not having her butt super high. Show what butt high looks like. We don't want here. We don't want the butt sagging where her back goes into like a lot of extension like this. We want to come up, and she is sturdy. She is literally exhaling while she's still breathing the whole time. Once you hold it, you can hold it. It's kind of like when you have to stop going to the bathroom abruptly. It's that same feeling, as strange as that sounds. It is. Okay? And it's make sure that she is maintaining this neutral lumbar spine. Stand up. So I would highly advise to look into core engagement. There's tons of articles online about it, and they're going to be able to go into a little bit more depth about how to do it. We just wanted to kind of hammer it away because it is literally needed for every one of the exercises that we're about to do or that you are doing at some point in time. Do you have anything to add? Nope. Okay. Cool. Let's put this back over here. So what we're going to do now is we'll talk about vertical pressing and what vertical pressing is going to look like. We'll start with the PVZ pipe, and then we can go to maybe some actual exercises that you're going to see in the gym. So vertical pressing could be anything from your push press, your push jerks, your dumbbell shoulder press, your single arm shoulder press, your arm press. Everything I'm going to talk about applies to all those exercises. We're going to start from a standing position. So let's do a strict press and face the camera for right now. So do a correct strict press where you're going to bring the bar above the head and bring it back down. Good. So a couple things to note. Keep going. Her ribs are staying nice and flat. She's not coming, when she comes up, she's not extending. Show ribs up. So she's not coming out here. And notice again, what happens when she's coming to this extension is we're putting her lower back in a bad position. The weight is above her head, so the force of that weight is coming straight down through her body, and now her back's not in a safe position to protect that disc. If she lowers the ribs, I've made her do it a little more than you have to, she's now stacked, okay? Some things that may happen with somebody not being able to get to this position and keep their ribs down, they may have some shoulder mobility issues. They may have some lat mobility issues. They could have a whole bunch of stuff going on in the thoracic spine that they don't know what's going on. So if you cannot achieve a position that looks like this with a nice flat back, ribs down, and biceps up by the ears without having to extend at the back, you may need to see a physical therapist, or you need to find a functionally movement certified trainer, because they're going to be able to help you reestablish. Well, first, find out what the motor problem is, and then reestablish that proper position. So, again, show some good presses. Keep going. Good. Now, let's have her turn around. So now, with regard, we have good position, we have all that. Now we need good stability, okay? We want to make sure that when she gets to the end range of her position, or even throughout the motion that she's doing, that she is stable the entire time through. A good thing to remember when you're exercising is not the weight you lift, it's how you lift it. Okay? If you're lifting a super heavy amount of weight, but you're getting from point A to point B terribly, that's not impressive me. Sorry, that's not impressing me at all, and I don't think it's going to benefit you in the long run. It's just going to have you get hurt. You want to make sure that you lift the weight correctly, and if it's hard with a light weight, that's awesome, because you're being kind to your joints while being strenuous on your muscles, and the joints are what usually wears out first. So if we can protect those for the longer run, that's going to save you a lot of money and a lot of headache that comes with those injuries. So again, when she's pressing above the head, she's also coming to where, so press up, she is engaged at the lats, she is stiff in the shoulders. These things are not going anywhere. She is strong and she is sturdy. She's not sitting up there real elastic-like, okay? Put the bar down. Good, so some exercises. So the main fault that you're gonna see from that is people having to come out here because they don't have the proper mobility to get above their head. They're going to come here when they want to get to that proper mobility. And yeah, that's about it. Can you think of any other faults with the overhead pressing from a standing position? Okay. The big one to watch for, and the only one I'm really, really worried about is, again, that extension. So when you start in the strict press, engage those abs right away. My bad, engage the core. It's not just the abs. So when you press up, you're not going to extension. So some other exercises you can do with this is we'll have Natalie sit down on the bench. You want to grab those 40s. Here's your basic, bodybuilding kind of workout that you can do with it. She's just going to, I would say, sit your butt at the butt end and then have your feet off at the end. There you go. She's going to be doing a no back supported overhead press, because this is a great way to show, because actually doing 40 pounds with no back support to actually do proper core engagement it's pretty heavy weight, honestly. So she's going to bring the weights up and we can see if she can actually do it properly. Okay, press up. Good. And see, she's maintaining that nice straight back. Give me a couple reps. Again, she's engaged. She's sticking. Her shoulders are tight. I know it's heavy. And now we can see she's actually starting to extend because she's getting tired. Okay? And that's because 40 pounds, even though you can set them down, people are throwing up the 85s and 90s above their head. And what's typically happening is they have this all the way up. They're pushing their head against that, and they're rocking their back. You're no longer, if you're trying to isolate your shoulders, you're not isolating your shoulders anymore when you arch your back. Now you're recruiting your anterior delts and your pecs, and you're starting to use more muscles to be able to do that action. If your goal is to train a single muscle group, which I know not all of ours are, you might as well find the way to put that muscle group in the most strenuous position with the lightest weight. Why try to go into bicep curls where I'm swinging a bunch of weight when my biceps aren't doing the work anymore, and that's what I'm trying to train? That's counterintuitive. If you're doing a light weight and it's making you work hard, that's completely fine. Sorry, that's me on my soapbox. We are good. So that is vertical pressing. For vertical pulling, this is going to be difficult to show in here. We have tried to set up a gym atmosphere, but we don't have pull-up bars or anything of the sort. So we're going to just go over one of the main concepts with vertical pulling, which is packing the shoulders. It's not really packing the shoulders, it's more lat engagement. And we want to make sure that we get to that position before we ever pull a bar to our face or pull ourselves to a bar doing like pull-ups or a lat pull. So Natalie's going to turn around, and we're going to imagine that she has this PVZ pipe, and let's say it's a lat pull, okay? Now, she's going to get to a position that's counterintuitive for her shoulders. So I want you to really get some slack. See how her shoulders come up like this? A lot of people will hang on the bar and start swinging to their chest when they're doing their lat pulls. What we want to see happen, exactly like that. What we want to see happen is she's literally going to engage at her lats, and it makes her scapula turn downward, okay? So she's engaging at the lats, and now she's in a safe position. Her shoulders are safe now. They're not just opened up where they're like all the ligaments and all the tendons are going to get aggravated in there from being in a bad position. She's now engaged the lats and she's taking some of the force from the bar into her lats. When she pulls the bar down to her face, let's say you're doing a lat pull so you can lean back a little bit. She's going to pull it down above her head. She keeps that position the whole time and isolates her lats. She's also making sure not to extend at the back when she's doing this, which is actually kind of hard to do in these movements. So vertical pulling, the main thing I want to see is that lat engagement to make sure that our shoulder is in a safe position and that we're not going to just really kind of, as the bar comes up, we slink our shoulders out and really shoot like, you know, the ligaments up there and just tear them up real bad. We don't want to do that. Good. So since it's difficult to kind of show vertical pulling, I think we're going to stick with that. A way I like to do my pull-ups is I make sure we do what's called hollow position. So I will be doing pull-ups, but I put my feet in front of me, so I get a little bit of core engagement right there, and it keeps my back straight, and I pull myself up like so. So we call it hollow because you're almost like out this way. Okay? Good? Yep. All right, so next we're going to talk about, let's do horizontal pressing first. So one of the reasons we talked about the vertical pulling first is because that little lat engagement that I was just talking about with the lats, we're going to also utilize in our horizontal pulling and our horizontal pushing as well. So we're going to have Natalie just show a basic bench press, right? Actually, let's have you come down and do a push-up, okay? So do a couple of just good push-ups real quick. So we're also going to watch, okay? We're seeing that there's no back extension happening. Show them what it looks like when you back extend as you come up. Good. That's some bad reflexive core right there. So we're making sure that we're stout the whole time. So she goes down and up, and she maintains that straight back. Also notice that she's actually tracking her arms very close to her body go down. You see how her elbows aren't flaring out? Show them flared out elbows. A lot of people used to think this is the way to work the pecs right here because we're getting a larger range of motion. It's not too good, honestly, on the pec, on your tendon, which I've torn before, so trust me, you don't want to bench and push up that way. But as we are turning those arms in and keeping the arms close to the body, we're again protecting the shoulder and we're protecting the chest, okay? So she is literally doing this lat engagement right now. She's almost turning her hands into the floor as she's doing a push-up. It's like she's opening a doorknob. It's literally turning the floor, and you can see, if I were wearing a tank top, you could see your scapula move, okay? So it's important to keep those arms pretty close to the body.
A question is, if
Hold down.
you can't do push-ups, you don't feel like you're strong enough to do push-ups, what is a good way to work up to them?
So the best way to work up the push-ups, because most people would tell you to drop on the knees, right? That's what we do. But we've been talking so much about core engagement that all of a sudden when you drop to the knees, the core's kicked off. So we're not going to be able to build the motor pattern from the brain to the abs to the small musculature of the floor to reflexively kick on if we actually drop to our knees. So the next best thing is we're going to start going inverted. So we'll start like on an inverted topic or like an inverted bench and make that range of motion a little bit less. Like for instance, when I tore my pec, when I came back from surgery, I started doing push-ups on the sink, on my bathroom sink. And I slowly lowered myself until I got to horizontal. The main reason why we want to do that is we're not disengaging the core. Once you drop to the knees, the core disengages. So it's always my recommendation to be able to do it on an inverted or at an inclined position. Not inverted, my bad. The thing too though is if for some reason you could not even do a push-up on like say a plyometric box that's really high off the ground, the next best way to start building strength to be able to do something is build the eccentric strength first. So eccentric strength is the lengthening of the muscle or the stretching of the muscle. So if I couldn't do a full push-up, what I would do is I'd maintain good pack position and I'd come down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'd drop my knees and I'd stand back up and I'd do it again. So that's a good way to start building strength because that's the loading phase, all right? And then all of a sudden when we can start pushing up and maintaining that good back position, then we're building the concentric phase. But usually it's a little bit more strenuous on the muscles to do that eccentric loading, and it will transfer over to that concentric, the next pattern, the pushing up, and will help individuals be able to do a push-up or a pull-up. Like if you can't do pull-ups, another great way is to jump yourself above the bar and then lower yourself nice and slow. So doing eccentric training, or what do they call it? What's the other word for eccentric training? Negative training is a great way to build strength if you couldn't do it initially. But yes, to be simple, bring yourself up on an incline and then slowly lower yourself to the ground. Good question, though. Thank you. A lot of people just think to drop to the ground, so I'm glad you asked that. So with her push-ups, she's tracking the arms close to the body. She's keeping the lats engaged the whole time. She's keeping a nice straight back. And yeah, so that's one vertical press or horizontal press. Now I want to talk about a horizontal press on the bench press because it's important that there's these things we got called the 5 points of contact when it comes to bench pressing. She's going to pick this heavy weight up. Okay, she's going to lay back. So when we are bench pressing, the dumbbells, I'm sorry. It is essential to maintain the 5 points of contact. That's going to be your head, your shoulders, your low back, your butt, and your feet, okay? So start pressing away. She is going to make sure, see her arms are still tracking pretty close to her body. She's not flaring out, show them flaring out. Say, that's going to be real hard on the old pec tendon right there, okay? She's keeping herself, and just that little turn engages these lats, okay? It literally makes her stiff. So she's not going to get put in a bad position. Now, keep going. She's also making sure that she is not arching at the back. It may look like she has a little bit of space, but it's because her butt is tight right now. If she came down and then arched on the way up, this is not what we're looking for. That shows that the reflexive nature of the core is not kicking in during the external stimulus that's coming from the bench press, okay? So she wants to make sure to keep those ribs down by having lats tight, butt tight, and feet on the ground. Okay? You'll see people all the time, sometimes when they first bench, so go down and they lift their feet up off the ground and they start wiggling all over the place. Don't do that. Okay? For basic bench press, keep the feet flat on the ground. She looks good. All right, now what I want to show is a typical exercise you will see with some horizontal pressing in the gym. Show them a dumbbell press. So Natalie and I do dumbbell presses a little bit differently than most people. A lot of people will be what we have called a prone grip. That's with the palm side down. And it gets them real wide, and it has a lot of stress on that pec tendon. What we slowly do is we just kind of externally rotate, which, again, engages that lat. Notice just how my shoulder comes down. I'm in a stiff position now, and we go from here. Okay? Natalie even goes in more, okay, which is just fine. We are being nice to the scapula, and we are working in the position that the scapula actually wants to work. We're turning on the way down. The scapula, it works here, but it puts a lot of things in subjective positions that we don't want to do. So show them a couple dumbbell presses. Good. So this is what we call a neutral grip with palms facing each other. It's fine. It's beautiful. How you feeling? Good. Good? All right, good. Hop up. So those are some horizontal pressing actions. Again, main things to focus on is do not let the back go into extension. That's going to be I'm going to say it with every movement that we get into. We're going to make sure that the lats are packed, that they're engaged. When we're actually doing a bench press or we're utilizing a bench, we want to make sure that the butt's tight and that the lats are tight and that we're maintaining our head, the back of our head, our shoulder blades, our low back, our butt, and our feet all in contact with either the bench or the floor. I'm so used to asking, does that make sense, or is there any questions, but there's nobody here. So.
There's one thing to add, though.
Okay.
When you're tucking your back in, you want to think about tucking your scapulas into your back pocket. So you're just kind of bringing them back and down. Instead of trying to arch your back and kind of think about that, you're just kind of tucking the shoulders back and putting them on the bench, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you, Natalie. That's why I hired her. So that is horizontal pressing. We'll talk about horizontal pulling now. So we can just do a dumbbell row, honestly. So main things, and how I actually want you to do a dumbbell row is come back, hand here, do your lawnmower row, okay? So get your feet a little wider, step back, give a good hip hinge, soft bend in the knees. So we want to make sure if she's, actually hop up real quick, set that down. I don't think I've had you do these before. We're going to get in a position that I don't think I've showed Natalie before. So when we're doing a horizontal row with a dumbbell from the floor, we want to make sure that we keep everything engaged. We're going to get ourselves in a very kind of strange position. We're going to have our legs nice and wide. We're going to have a good, solid base, and we're going to really push our butts back, and our hamstrings are nice and tight. I have a little bit of weight on the bench, and I'm keeping a nice straight back. I'm not extending. I'm engaged right here. I'm maintaining this position the whole time. I grab that dumbbell, and the only thing I have to do is just pull it right up to my chest and back down. Make sure to keep these heels on the ground. You can even scoot back a little bit farther, make some room. Bring it up, squeeze. Okay? So main things, Natalie, now you got it. The main things to look for here is that we're keeping that arm close to the body, and we're tracking it, again, making sure that we're using the scapula for how it's meant to use. Okay? So go for it. She's coming right up. She doesn't need to twist all the way over. Like, show them how a bodybuilder kind of comes up and really, It's not needed. Okay, it's extra movement that's not really working the rhomboids or the low traps or anything like that. We're getting the most bang for our buck right here. She has to have good, sturdy core engagement right here. That's why we actually kind of have the bench right here, because that's acting as an external core, because we're kind of putting her back in a subjective position right now, but by having the weight or by having the platform in front of us, we're able to get some external core action from that. So pulling is more about, you actually want to grab that PVC pipe, sit your butt here and back facing that way, and imagine that you're doing like a cable row. Okay, there you go. So when she pulls back, note how her arms are staying as close to her body as possible. Give it a supine grip. There you go. Good, so those elbows are staying nice and close. We're not flaring them out super wide. Honestly, there's certain rows that you can do. It's not as bad to row with a really wide grip as it is to press with a really wide grip. But if you want to be the most particular about your safety, it's best to keep those arms in as close as possible, okay? So she is imagining that her hands are just hooks and that all the pulling is coming from pretty much her lower traps and her rhomboids. She pulls back, retracts the scapula, and she imagines that she's like smashing an apple between her shoulder blades or a walnut or whatever you want. So she's getting a good pinch here, and she's still engaged with the lower lats, right? So go all the way out. Now show them what it looks like when you disengage your lats, as in from being out here. So show disengaged, and now show engaged. Good. So she sets her position, disengage, engage. This is literally, she's not arching at the lower back. She is literally just engaged. I can feel them firing right now. Again, that's going to help keep that back nice and straight as we're rowing through, okay? There's multiple types of rowing you can do. Again, just make sure the back's in a good position, and I really do like to keep the arms close to the body. Good. Stand up. So now we'll get into the more, what you really see the base of most exercises, and that's your squatting and your hinging. So our squatting is going to be our knee dominant stuff, and our hinging is going to be our hip dominant stuff. So let's just start with a basic squat, okay? And we don't even have, are you feeling good to do no weight squats right now? Okay, cool, come right here. So first things to note with the squat, let's show them from the front, face forward. When you're squatting, so let's just start doing some good squats. You want to make sure that on the way down, you are driving your knees out, and on the way up, you're driving your knees out. You are essentially sitting, you want to think that you're sitting your torso in between your legs. You'll feel a good stretch in your adductors when you're doing it correctly. So she is driving her knees out on the way down and out on the way up. This is for the fact that if she squats and then she has like a valgus collapse happen, so her knees come in and then stands up, what's happening is we have tendons on the inside or ligaments on the inside of this knee, and we can be putting our MCL or our medial collateral ligament in a subjective position by having the force come down that way. So we always want to make sure that the knees are staying out, even on the way down and on the way up. Okay, those are two big keys to always keep into consideration when we're doing knee dominant exercises or when we're doing any kind of squatting. Okay, the next thing is face that way. So start doing some good squats. So we know how her back is staying nice and straight. She's not completely like doing a ballet squat where she's straight up and down. She's getting a little bit of a hinge, but the back, the lower back is not kicking underneath or anything. Show them what it would look like if you had bar on your back and then you went like fell forward. So what we don't want to happen is this, and then they start standing up and then they extend at the back. That's now not working their lower body. We're now working our lumbar spine when we don't want to do that. This is meant to hit our legs. So show them again. Squats down, falls forward, and then it extends up. Okay, we don't want that to happen at all with our squats. Okay, I know you were practicing. So she doesn't, there's a thing called the butt wink that we don't want to happen. She doesn't have a butt wink because she has good mobility, but she's going to try to fake what a butt wink is. And the reason we don't want, what's going to happen, she's going to squat down. And once people maybe lose their hip flexor mobility or their hamstring, or they're not mobile in a certain region, all of a sudden now the pelvis and the low back have to kick in to take over to increase the range, to keep the range of motion going. So what happens is that pelvis will curl under, which then again flexes that spine and puts those discs in a subjective position. So somewhat a butt wink looks like. Notice how her hips are just scooping underneath. Stand up. Do it again. It's right there. Her butt is winking underneath, and now we're in a flexed position at the spine. We do not want that. If you are having that happen in your squats, there's most likely a mobility issue somewhere. It could be in your ankles, it could be in your hips, it could be in your hamstrings, it could be in a number of places, but it's something that you want to get looked at, okay? A good way to start training squats, okay, actually, before we get to that, another thing that we need to focus on with our squats is we don't want our knees diving over our toes. So when she squats down, the weight of, this is incorrect, so when she squats down correctly, the weight of her body, squat, is in the heels of her feet, okay? So she could literally wiggle her toes right now if she wanted to, okay? What we don't want to happen, stand up, is squat down and have the knees fall over the toes, okay? She has great ankle mobility, so her ankles are still maintaining contact with the ground, but for someone like me, if that was happening, you'll see this all the time, okay? Say if you are squatting and for some reason do a good squat and your heels just come up off the ground. If you're having that issue, a good thing to start doing at that point, maybe start putting like 5-pound plates under your heels and do squats with that and then slowly remove them. If that doesn't fix it, there's a bigger issue, but that's usually a quick fix that can happen. So we talked about making sure that the knees stay back, that the weight's in the heels, that we do not valgus collapse at the knees, and that we drive our knees out on the way up and way down. Natalie, face forward. Can you show them what the worst squat in the world looks like? She was practicing this earlier. So we don't want this at all, okay? We want to be strong, and we also want to be mobile and stable. If for some reason that, hold this, your squat, you can only maintain good form to here, practice that from now on, okay? And then get lower, lower, and lower and find out where your restrictions are at. A great way to initially start learning squats, grab a dumbbell, is what we call a goblet squat. A goblet squat helps because the weight's in front of the body and it acts as a counterweight so that when she wants to fall backwards to put more weight in her heels, the weight holds her up. And it's a good way to just train that motor pattern, okay? A big thing about training nowadays is really developing the proper motor pattern that makes the sequence of the movement happen. So you want to make sure to do things correctly so that the brain tells the body to do the things right. So when she does a goblet squat, the main concern here is that she maintains 2 points of contact. Top of the dumbbell, bottom of the dumbbell, maintain contact the whole time. She squats down, touches the elbows on the inside of the legs, and then stands back up. Back down, and up. So another thing that we want to look at when we're trying to get the proper depth of the squat, it does not need to be, we don't talk about 90 degrees at the knees, we talk about femurs parallel to the ground. So you want to make sure that you watch where your femurs are at in relation to the ground. So squat down to where your femurs are parallel. Boom, she's there. So it's different for everybody, okay? 90 degrees might get some people above this, and 90 degrees might get some people below this, so it's a good use to use the femurs, okay? Cool. Anything with squats?
Nope, think got it all.
Okay, just since, yes?
We do have a squat question. How big of a difference is foot position while squatting? Toes forward versus toes out?
I am glad you asked. So this is a person-specific thing. And it all comes down to how the structure of your hip is, and more essentially, how the structure of the ball of your hip goes into the socket, into the what?
Into the acetabulum.
She corrected me earlier because I called it the lesser trochanter. Yeah, it's the acetabulum. So, and honestly, it's very genetic, too. It's very interesting to watch. Dr. Stu McGill has a bunch of stuff on the ball and socket joint and how people from Ireland are different than people from New Zealand and things like that. But you want to do with what makes you comfortable. A lot of times when you're super duck-footed, it's because you have really, really like tight hip flexors, and you need to like roll those out and stretch them, and it'll turn the toes inward, and not everyone's going to be straightforward. So I was actually going to talk about this. This is a way to find your deadlift position, and this is a way to find your squatting position, and it's a thing that I call the grip and rip. I didn't invent it. A guy named Brett Jones figured it out. But if you want to find your squatting position with regard to where your mobility is at currently and what is proper for your body, what you would want to do is you're going to stand straight up and down. You're going to lift your toes up off the ground, and while your toes are off the ground, you squeeze your butt cheeks, and your toes will go out to where your squat or deadlift position should be. Okay? And that's my body. Okay, I'm tight in this position. It's pulling to me to where my hip flexor, not my hip flexors, my hip socket actually is. However, some people are just here because they're really, really immobile in the hips. Now, I shouldn't just say the hip flexors. It's a number of reasons. And you used to be terrible. I used to be terrible, and we're both getting better at it because we do a lot of soft tissue work or manual manipulation on our hip flexors. But there's no way that I'm ever going to be a toe straight forward kind of person. So do what makes feel comfortable for you, and that allows, the simplest way to put it is do it where it allows your knee or your femurs to go parallel to the ground without your heels coming off the ground and without your knees diving inward, okay? Challenge yourself to get a little bit more forward. Start foam rolling your hip flexors and stretching out certain areas to see if that happens, because sometimes that duck walk is a mobility issue, but you can still train while having it. But again, you don't really want to cement an improper pattern. You don't want to cement that improper positioning. But the thing is, if you are training with proper knees driving out, getting the femurs to parallel, sitting the hips back in it, when the mobility starts to develop, as you start developing the mobility, the toes will start turning in naturally to where they are now after those muscles loosen up a bit, and then you've already cemented a good pattern from A to B. So it's okay that way. But again, a good way to start, like especially if you're gonna go up to a deadlift or a squat, lift the toes off the ground, squeeze your butt. Where your toes fall, that's your squat position, okay? I would not suggest, so for a long time people were like, okay, I have to have my toes forward and I need to get into my deep squat, and they're forcing themselves into this position, and you'll see that their toes just turn out at the bottom. If they turn out, that's you. And just be happy with where you're at. You're unique, you're beautiful, you're an awesome person, do what you do, okay? But again, it's very person specific. There's certain tests that you can do to find out how your hip socket is engaged with regard to the ball and socket joint. If you remember this individual's name, and if you want to post a question afterwards, I can send you literally the link to Dr. Stu McGill's 2 tests that he utilizes to be able to find the shape of your own hip. And then you can have one of your friends do it to you, or watch where you're at, because it's going to tell you how wide your legs should be when you squat. Because some people should actually be wider than just hip width apart. So it's not a universal thing. It's very individualistic. But I can post that link. Can I post that link on something for them? And it'll be able to have you and a friend go over it, where it's pretty cool. And you can figure out what your actual squatting position is. Because this is only going to do so much for you, but those will be able to, and you can, it's easy to learn. He explains it really well, and you'll be able to figure it out. Any other questions? I love that question, though. Foot placement's huge. As you actually, if you may have saw it, Natalie was squatting a couple times and her toes turned out, and it's just because that's where she wants to be cool and wants to have her toes straight, but it's not how all of us are. We're on hinging. Okay, I was going to have you do PVZ pipe hinging, but we're not going to. So hinging is essentially the deadlift. It is you picking things up in the world. It is where I think weightlifting started. I think one caveman was like, hey, caveman 2, I bet you I can pick up that boulder and you can't. And then that's where weightlifting was born. That's science. It's proven. But you have to think in everyday life you're doing all these things. You're doing vertical pressing, you're doing vertical pulling, you're doing vertical pressing, you're doing everything, okay? But the one thing that you probably do more than anything is you bend and you squat. So now we're going to talk about bending, okay? So we're going to start with, have you ever done PVZ pipe hip hinging with, okay, come here. So we have points of contact again. Weird, right? You want this at your low back. No. Slide down, hand at low back. Turn your hand the other way. Excellent. So a great way to teach somebody a hinge and to find out if they should properly be hinging is to have them put a PVZ pipe and do a hip hinge while they maintain contact of the head, contact of the shoulders, contact of the low back, and contact of the butt. Now a hip hinge is literally, so you're bending over, but you're not squatting. You're hinging at the hips and you're pushing backwards, right? You're going to have a soft bend in your knee. You're going to keep the back straight. You don't want to arch too much. Keep that down. And there's going to be a lot of tension in the hamstrings and in the glutes. So you're literally pushing your butt backwards, okay? It's like you're on the dance floor and you're chasing someone, right? That's what kids do. So what she's going to do is she's going to hip hinge, and as a coach, I would watch if she loses any points of contact. Keep hinging, keep hinging, keep hinging, keep hinging, keep hinging. She is absolutely beautiful. She is ready to hinge. She is ready to deadlift. She's losing a little bit, so come down again. Now we're losing a little bit of contact on the butt. I'm not trying to poke her butt, okay? Honestly, it's very minimal, and I think that she's pretty good for hinging. She is able to maintain all this contact. When I used to do this, the first thing that would happen, let me see this, is I thought I was the best deadlifter in the world, and the first thing I did as a deadlifter was engage my back, and then I would go down, and I could lift all the weight in the world, right? But you want to keep everything nice and flat, hinge, and kind of, mine's terrible, right? So, now that she has surpassed that test, we will talk about, I think it's a great thing to start teaching people how to hip hinge with a kettlebell deadlift or a kettlebell RDL. This is for the fact that they're able to put the weight behind themselves and in between their legs and maintain good, proper back positioning. And if somebody can't do this properly and they're all of a sudden giving up their back, which we'll talk about what giving up your back looks like here in a second, if they all of a sudden just can't do it, or not all of a sudden, they just couldn't do it in the first place, the easiest fix in the world is just to bring the weight up to them. So if they can't hinge properly down to the proper depth of the weight, you would just put like a step or a weight plate or something underneath it to where it decreases the range of motion of the fulcrum at the hips to grab that weight, okay? So what I'm gonna have you do is I want you to do a kettlebell deadlift. I want that kettlebell to be about the middle part of your feet, okay? So there's a couple things that she's gonna do when she's hinging. She's going to make sure, I always tell people I want you to imagine that you're being tickled, and so you're gonna keep your arms real tight to your side so nobody can tickle you, okay? So she's got credit cards in between her arms, and they got minimum money on them, and she doesn't wanna lose them, so no credit cards going anywhere with regard, I have all kinds of crazy cues, I'm sorry. She's going to maintain contact and the lat engagement the entire time as she goes to reach that kettlebell. I really want you to overemphasize this hinge, so step even farther forward. So we're really going to get a good hinge. You're going to get a good stretch, okay? So what she's going to do is, I always call it, she's going to go get that kettlebell, okay? She is going to push her hips back as far as she can while maintaining her arms against her body. Once she starts to feel her arms slip away, that's when she's going to start bending at the knees. So a hip hinge does not mean that you just have a straight legs. You will have a slight bend in your knees. And the slight bend can increase as you need it to when the hinge stops. Does that make sense? Okay. So she's going to go get the kettlebell. She's going to start pushing her butt back. And now she's start bending her knees because the mobility, yep, good. She grabs that kettlebell, brings it straight up, back down. Do a couple reps. So, is there any way you can keep your legs a little more straight? Or do we need to bring that kettlebell up to you? Good. So she is a little taller than me, so it makes it a little bit harder for her. But she's having a good hinge here, except for kind of at the very bottom. We're seeing this kind of happen. Her back starting to flatten out, right? So if I wanted to, hold on real quick. I'm going to come behind you. What do we have? What do we have that I can use? I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. Well, we can do it simply like this. Let's make it super easy. Now get the kettlebell. So this isn't ridiculous. Usually you just put a weight or like we could use a 45-pound plate, but notice how it's not happening anymore, right? She's not having that flexion at the spine happen anymore. So then we would go down to something smaller and something smaller and something smaller. Or she's actually pretty strong and I could use a bigger kettlebell that's easier to get. This is a pretty light kettlebell for kettlebell RDLs. But we want to make sure that that back stays flat the whole time and that we don't start having our arms shift out in front of us. So when I talked about giving up the back earlier, if I'm hip hinging backwards and all of a sudden my arms start shifting out, now this weight is forcing me down here and I have too much pressure on my low back and I'm not protecting it by keeping the weight back here, okay? I'm being very nitpicky right now. Her hinge was fine, honestly. Okay, so that's a great way to start teaching yourself how to do a hip hinge or a deadlift. So again, it's nice soft bend in the knees, pushing the butt back, keeping the knees somewhat straight, nice tight back, not arching, but keeping this position throughout the entire motion, right? So now when we start getting better at it, we can start doing things like deadlifts, okay? So now he's gonna come over here. And what makes this a little bit harder than the kettlebell is she's no longer allowed to like have her hands come in between her legs to where she's able to maintain that back position. So when she goes and gets the bar, so let's do a RDL, okay? From the ground. So just hold it right there and get into position, so get stacked. Yeah, so like you're about to pull the bar off the ground. Notice we're in a good hip hinge, and what's happening is she has now externally rotated her arms to engage her lats the whole time. Pick that bar up. She keeps the bar close to her, back down. Good. So typically in RDL, you actually don't go all the way to the ground, but we're going to show RDLs going to the ground. Do you want to show just what an RDL is? Yeah, that's fine. Do an RDL. So RDL is you're not going to go all the way to the ground, and you're really just working the hinge phase. Boom. Don't let it fall out from the body. Keep it close. Feel the steel. What are you doing? Come on. So she is really practicing her hinge phase because it's kind of hard to have the mobility because now when she goes all the way down, it's going to turn into a deadlift where she gets a little bit more bend in the knees, okay? But if you want to focus on that hinge, the RDL is really good for it. She's loading her hamstrings. As she's sitting back and sitting her butt back behind her, she is loading her heels too. You should feel a lot of weight in the heels, which will load the hamstrings, and you'll feel a lot of tension back there. She's a deadlift queen. You have a state record?
Yes.
She has a state record. What was it?
420.
So she deadlifted 420 pounds, okay? What are your tips with deadlifting?
Keeping a nice tight back and training your back muscles, because a lot of people have weak backs and they start to cave in, and they think it's because I'm not I'm not arching my back enough, so then they hyperextend their lower back. So getting that really strong back helps a lot.
That makes me remember that we forgot to, so the most common fault with a deadlift, okay? So let's have you actually roll that weight so you can be in the middle here. So you're a profile to the camera. No one tell anybody that we're using plates on the ground. So the most common thing that you're going to see with a deadlift that's gone wrong is not back extension, but it is back flexion. So when she goes and gets that weight, all of a sudden when she picks the bar up off the ground, she cannot maintain the hip hinge position. So hinge down, grab that weight. Good. She is in a good position. Now when she lifts, her butt all of a sudden comes first, and she lifts with her back. That is a big no-no, okay? That shows me that, because the core is not just in front, it's all the way in back too. It shows me that her posterior side is not able to engage to be able to maintain that position throughout the entire movement. And it's exactly the same thing as that weight coming out in front of me. We're giving up the low back because we're coming here with the deadlift. We shoot up. Okay, it's nothing but my low back now. Okay, we want to make sure that when we're using the deadlift that we're using the muscles that are right and correct for the exercise, which is her glutes and her hamstrings and a little bit of her back, but more for support. Anything else? Nope. All right, roll that back. So to kind of reiterate a little bit, it is very important within your programs to make sure that you have as much vertical pushing as you do vertical pulling, as much horizontal pushing as you do horizontal pulling, and as much hip dominant as you do knee dominant exercises. I would even get to the point where you have as much single leg hip dominant, like a single leg RDL, to as much single leg knee dominant, like a pistol squat or something like that. Okay? So make sure it's equivalent across the board. Do the exercises correctly. Use what we've talked about today just as a quick check sheet. If you're doing a vertical press and for some reason the ribs just keep coming up no matter how hard you're trying to be able to hold them down, it's not an easy fix. It's kind of confusing to figure out what it is, but if you find someone that knows how to work around it or how to like reestablish your mobility and then reestablish the stability and then repattern the improper pattern, it's a minimal process. It only takes 2 to 3 weeks. You just got to find the right people to do it. And I would suggest to probably see a physical therapist for that. They're going to be able to, okay, you're fixed. Well, they're not like that, but they do magic, honestly. So it's beneficial to exercise, right? We all know that. It's beneficial to weight train. Everyone hears it. But more specifically, it's more beneficial to weight train correctly. So with that, that kind of wraps up what we're talking about in the 7 principles of movement, the Train Smart webinar that we have here. I want to tell you guys about some opportunities that we have going on. Right now, Global Connections is working with us here at Washington State University and the rest of the Pac-12 schools in kind of a competition that we have amongst ourselves called the Pac-12 Fitness Challenge. It runs from October 24th to the 28th. And what it is we are able to log minutes of our exercise time that we do, and we go against other universities. And the website was pac12.org for logging your minutes. So essentially you go on there, and if you went to the gym for 45 minutes, you log your minutes in there, and then it goes to our entire Washington State University total. Help us out with this. We lose to Stanford every year. I have been doing stuff at WSU since 2009, and I have come in, I take this very personally apparently, we've come in second and third every single time, and Stanford always beats us. And I would like us, if we start getting global, campus students to help out and online students, it's kind of sneaky and cheaty, but everyone else is doing it, so it's whatever. We will also be doing a thing called the weight, here at the rec center at WSU, we have a weight room challenge that we do, where each day is like a different 3-minute challenge. I'm going to be working with Global Connections to post the challenges either on the Facebook, right, or are we doing it on the Wellbeing Online page? We'll probably be doing them on both. So make sure to check those out. You'll be able to submit your scores. I bought prizes for everyone. We got some foam rollers and some bands. You guys got some like yoga kits or something, or what are you guys doing? There's lots of prizes, so hop on and do it. It'll be a good time. Our next webinar is going to be shopping for real food. It's going to be on November 1st from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. I will go over what I call JERF, which means just eat real food, and how to do so in this typical consumer world that we live in now, and how to utilize the store for yourself, and how to not get caught into what I call the cardboard carbohydrates and the secret additives in foods and all the kind of terrible stuff that our body just is not really primed to deal with at this point. Also, check out Wellbeing Online. I post content every single week. I'll post a workout of the week. I post an article review every other week about topics that deal with your well-being. And then I also kind of post a nutritional tip every single week. Is there anything I'm missing?
But we do have a question.
Okay, we do have a question.
When pulling and lifting, I've noticed a popping in my shoulders. Is that normal, or am I performing the exercise wrong?
That is usually not normal, but what I would say in there is, one, not knowing who you are, not going through your workouts with you, not seeing how you move, not seeing your mobility, your stability, or any of that. I can't really answer that question. And even as a strength and conditioning coach and as a trainer, I can't really diagnose that as well either. I would suggest that you see a physical therapist about it. See them first. If it's not causing you a whole bunch of discomfort, like it's just, I mean, I have popping and cracking everywhere. We age, things happen. But no, it's not normal, but it may not be something that you have to deal with or have to really, go out of your way to try to fix. However, if it is causing some sort of pain, or if it's feeling like it's starting to cause some sort of pain, it would be definitely something to get looked at. Regardless, since the body isn't really meant to do that, there may be something going on, so it wouldn't hurt to see a physical therapist about it to see maybe if you can work around it.
And then, how often should one do resistance training?
That depends on what your goals are. The question was how often should one do resistance training? So it really depends on what your goals are. If you're an Olympic lifter and you're trying to compete, you're lifting 6 days a week in a very, very strategic programming. If you're just trying to do general fitness and you're just starting out, honestly, 2 to 3 days a week is just fine. I would suggest if you've been going to the gym for a while, 3 to 4 days is good. Make sure to do some sort of cardiovascular activity too, whether it could be honestly steady state stuff where you're doing longer distances, or if you like to get real amped up and do the interval training, that anaerobic threshold training can correlate to aerobic threshold training as well. But if you are general fitness and you are trying to stay somewhat healthy, a minimum of 3 days a week of resistance training is pretty good. If you can get 4, it makes your programming a whole lot easier. But again, it's really dependent on your goals, who you are, what your schedule is. The main thing is, do not make weight training a chore. Don't make it something, I gotta do this. Make it something that it's inbuilt into your life and you understand it for the preventative medicine that it is. I'm a true believer in doing proper nutrition and proper exercise and fitness will keep you out of the hospital. It is the true form of preventative medicine that's out there. Granted, it's not going to solve everything, but it's going to help a lot of things. I think it was Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine. And it really is. What you put into the body, what you do to the body is really going to affect how it is used and how it works. Cool, so that's all the questions we got for now. I will post that link for you, or I'll send it to Caitlin to post for you of Dr. Stu doing the individual squat stance tests. And that's all we have for you guys today. Thanks for coming.